on this matter, hopefully with the hope, that the impact is not as significant?
Well, you know, Kamal, my biggest concern, and it's one that has been raised, it was raised by Putin and partners. It has been raised over the years. I've raised it several times. What this is signaling again is that with the uncertainty, we cannot depend on gas production being at a particular level. Because we have not negotiated. I hear, you know, we keep hearing about these gas contracts that we renegotiated, which have not been in the public domain. We do not know what they did negotiate. But one of the issues there is that whenever there is a shortfall, there's an unplanned shutdown because of maintenance or whatever, or safety issues, what happens is that the downstream sector, you know, experiences a curtailment in gas, and then you have a drop in production. And I want to show you something. Last year when they had that 13.5% increase because of juniper in the gas production, what eventually the effect of it was in knock-on effects. So if I take, for example, natural gas liquids went up by 1.8%, LNG went up by 20.6%, methanol and ammonia had the similar results. And when we go into that issue, I'm speaking here now about the allocation of gas, and it brings into the discussion Train 1. What are we going to do? I think the government now has to determine what is going to be the allocation of gas, where the value chain is concerned, where we are going to be able to maximize that take. And I'm talking about maximizing that take in terms of the jobs we are creating, good quality, sustainable jobs, spin-off industries, service industries, and technology transfer.
I want to just pause there because I do not want to leave our young people out of this discussion. And you said it earlier as well, you know, you were happy to be on the panel with the young people. So, Amilka, before we go into addressing, we had a youth panel that Akash spoke with earlier. Before we go into addressing some of the particular concerns that there is, I wanted to get your initial reaction to the mid-year review presentation.
Sure, I could say broadly, a mid-year budget review is an interesting opportunity. It's like when you start a diet and 6 months after you realize, I can't sustain buying pita and Subway, maybe I need to chop onions more, and I thought I was going to lose 12 pounds and I only lose 6. So this is a way the country kind of gets a realistic assessment of how half the year progress has happened and so on. To the fairness to the government, the fact that the two major conversations around the tax revenue authority as well as issues around energy is proof that there is some degree of stability, that in fact the anxiety around petroleum price raises did not happen, that projected or proposed growth at 2% per year until 2021 is fairly sustainable, not at the level that probably a society would want to see itself, but the crisis of 2014 price shocks as well as 2008 with the global economic crisis has not repeated itself. So the fiscal measures and the kind of belt tightening by the state has produced some dividends. However, the mismatch between how people feel, in particular young people, around experiencing the quality of those changes will be up for serious debate, critique, and I think there's a level of accountability government
and that's something I was certainly raised earlier about the trickle-down effect to ordinary citizens, and especially young people who are graduating and who are well-placed to assume some of those jobs. I wanted to get from you as well, Richard. So in the discussion earlier, speaking with Mr. Jiwan Ali, there was the belief that not enough focus was placed on areas of diversification. So just listening in, and someone who has a keen interest in agriculture, what were your thoughts?
Well, Kamal, I'm sorry to do this, but before I begin, let me just correct you on one point. My name is Richard Jackson. I'm not a farmer. I don't want my inbox to be filled. I've never attempted to pretend to be a farmer. I'm an attorney at law, and I sit on the Agricultural Society Board of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. My apologies.
And I represent farmers of all areas, Felicity Farmers Association, Central Board Farmers, and so on. But to answer your question directly, unlike my colleagues in whatever field, the purpose of the mid-year budget review is an opportunity to look at what the budget was last year and the different changes we've had, whether it was successful in what areas where we have fallen short, and how we can increase our revenue stream and so on. Unlike my colleagues who have received something from the supplemental budget, agriculture has not. Mr. Jiwan Ali addressed that. In a national budget of $51 billion, agriculture received the least amount, $780 million. That works up to just about 2% of a national budget, and that is a sector that is a promising sector for growth. That is a sector for diversification. In fact, Kamal, some people might say that it is because of agricultural sector that all of us are here today, if not most of us. We are all here because of our great grandfathers and coming as a result of agriculture. And a supplemental budget of over 1.8.
How would you then respond to the statement then that agriculture contributes 0.04% to the national economy, and that that is very insignificant when you compare the revenues, for example, that you get from the manufacturing sector and also from the energy sector?
Well, what I believe she said was that agriculture produces about 0.4%. Our figures indicate it's around 1%. It's not much of a difference, but just a slight correction there. Nevertheless, agriculture produces 1% after having received the least in the budget. Imagine what it can do if it was treated like all of the other sectors. Imagine what it can do if it was invested more in. We have a minister boasting about 1% growth in GDP and so on. That is having ignored the promising growth in the agricultural sector. Imagine what it could be. Imagine what it should be. Imagine what it ought to be with a little bit of investment, a little bit of diversification, a little bit of encouraging the farmers, training the farmers and so on. These are the things that we look for in the agricultural sector. In a supplemental budget of 1.83
billion.
1.83, agreed. Nothing for agriculture, 17 ministries and departments and so on. Nothing for agriculture. Now, what does that mean? That means we're still surviving on what was given to us in the national budget last year, which after recurring expenditure leaves just about 53 million for growth in the sector. That's 53 million for training programs of farmers, 53 million in ADB loans, 53 million for land leases, 53 million for subsidies. You can't expect the sector to grow. And we've always seen neglect at the agricultural sector. We've seen the closure of the rice fields in eastern Trinidad. We've seen the closure of sugar, bananas, cocoa. We are known for having the best cocoa in the world. We ought to be exporting cocoa by the tons. 50,000 tons of cocoa, 30,000 tons of cocoa, 1,700 cocoa farmers in this country were left with dried cocoa in the fields. 30,000 dry cocoa, 30,000 tons of dry cocoa.
Our own Jesse Ram did a story recently about some farmers who did not have access to external markets, so their cocoa was basically just there, waiting, hoping that they would be able to find markets for it. So you've raised some very important points. The issue of diversification of the economy, targeting particular sectors of potential growth. Mrs. Sipaz-Adbejan, I want you to weigh in on this as a former government minister yourself. Where are you on the growth figures that were presented by the Minister of Finance?
Well, the problem I have here with these growth figures, right? Because they're so small, we're talking about 0.9% at one point, and we're talking about 1.9%. These, to begin with, development cannot just be based on these economic indicators. It does not translate into what is happening in the reality. If you look at what is going on, as much as the minister is saying that there is some growth and we have turned the corner, and because we are seeing 3 quarters of consecutive growth, we are thinking, okay, that we are out of recession. But it does not address the issue of how many young people who are well trained, graduating out of university and cannot get jobs. How many of these people? I hear, for example, this afternoon they were saying the import bill. And if you look at it, the exports now, you now have a surplus because imports are lower than exports. But I want to ask the question, is it that imports are lower because you have less disposable income? If you think about the amount of people who are without jobs or who have had to take cuts in salaries, you're talking about 5,000 petroleum workers and another 5,000. And everywhere people call you and tell you, I have had no other choice, I have to be retrenched, I'm looking for a job. Wouldn't that place less demand on imported goods? So therefore, I would think that that is probably one of the reasons why your import bill will be lower. I'm just saying it's contributing to it. It's not the only factor. The second thing is, we talk about that export going up, but I want to raise the issue, and we keep confusing an issue, and it happened last year in the budget. Export, we think about manufacturing. But what has really happened is that you have lumped now into the manufacturing all your petrochemicals, methanol, ammonia, and that did experience an increase because of the increase in natural gas production. So we're confusing the figures now and we're masking it to make it look as though we are experiencing this development. And it is not, in my view, happening because you are basing it on some economic indicators that are not the only indicators for development. What's happened to our Human Development Index?
Human development, that's an important point. Amilcar, so earlier we I'm being told we have to go to a break just now, but let me just throw in one question here. So earlier we heard the Minister of Finance speak about the expansion of the OJT program, for example, as one of the areas that government hopes to provide opportunities for young people in the economy. We've not seen a supplemental allocation to the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs. Are you satisfied with this?
Well, I think those are two questions where they intersect, but I'll just speak to it broadly. I think what we need to do is transform our approach with the Ministry of Youth and Sport Affairs from the youth project to youth mainstreaming, which is cross-sectoral, but also looks at standalone youth policies as well as intersectoral, the way that all ministries must address youth issues. To the issue around OJT specifically, I think the minister said something interesting where I would criticize it. What it does is distorts the labor participation in the economy, the extent to which is actually happening. However, it is a necessary absorption by the public sector, and the innovations on the program which are good is to put them into NGOs, put them into civic institutions, so the assistant teachers that we have into primary schools now. So I think that the program itself matured to meet the kind of the dynamic needs of this growing market, especially of postgraduate university students.
What is the feeling of young people generally? We heard them speak about, just the thought of purchasing a home in this economy. It seems completely out of reach. Things like crime affect them. Being able to afford certain things, unable to get jobs. What is the pulse like from our young people?
Dissatisfied, unhappy, and even if the ship is not sinking, some people jump on board. And that is what we need to understand with young people. It is hard in the country. Some people are internalizing that. Well, if the state has to suffer, then I have to suffer a little bit. But the reality is that many young people are being left aside. And I'm not trying to say just because young people are unemployed, we have crime. But that road to crime that we have is a long, winding road from which we could try and get out. And underemployment is a real problem. So you have young people who are also working with a degree and being paid $1,500 at the end of the month, which is abhorrent.
Certainly some issues for us to pick up on when we come back from this short break. We'll be right back.
It's a new year and new vision at Seaview Optical with up to 100% in discounts, 60% off top designer eyewear and 40% off lenses. Get designer frames with transition and anti-reflective coating for $12.99. Seaview Optical, affordable eye care for everyone.
Do you have problems remembering the most basic thing? Gink Gold is specially formulated and clinically proven to increase blood circulation to the brain and extremities, improving your memory, mental sharpness and concentration. Have a better future with improved memory. Use Gink Gold by Nature's Way.
For every person who takes pride in their skills, for every professional who defines their reputation by the quality of their service, for all of us that show appreciation for a job well done. Now, refrigeration and air conditioning technicians can be professionally certified. Find out more at www.nou-tt.blogspot.com. We certify, you verify.
Welcome back to CNC3, and we are analyzing the Finance Minister's mid-year budget review, which was delivered in the Parliament earlier today. Some important points raised: a tax amnesty for 3 months from June to September, no additional burdens, the Finance Minister said, on the citizens of this country, and I think he was probably appeasing some of the concerns about a potential increase in gas prices again. Does that provide any comfort? I'll start with you, Amilcar.
For sure, I think the public consciousness around a mid-year review is unfortunately quite narrow. So people to follow it and the specifics is really hammering all the details. You know, the first budget we have is a little bit of poetry, the mid-year review is a little bit of prose. So the details people have to work through this, and I think people will feel some relief that there wouldn't be any further burdens, but what they could get is a fair assessment about the economic performance. But just to use a Game of Thrones metaphor, winter is coming, and we'll have to deal with that in September and October. We'll have to deal with it now, contrary to how people feel about
I'm not sure how many of you here watch Game of Thrones. You do?
More people watch Game of Thrones.
You and I are on the same page. I don't. I intend to start very soon.
Come on, you're doing this on public.
I am. I'm going to get licks for it at some point. But the issue of no additional burdens on citizens.
Well, I think it's
important. Is that
important.
good news?
Well, especially when it comes to these fuel prices, always understand now premium is now at market price. Super is also at market price or just below market price. So it's not to say that there is any, the people of Trinidad and Tobago are, you know, they are paying the actual international market price, as I said, with super being slightly lower. Diesel was the only one I thought that they would have impacted. They may have tried to increase. But the issue there is if you hadn't, you know, touched diesel price, the impact to the economy, the impact on the cost of living, the impact on the delivery of goods. So I saw the actual cost of living going up. So I think the minister may have realized that if they had to, their social programs now will become more costly, as you have to provide more food cards, you have to provide more social assistance, especially for those below the poverty line. So I don't think it was wise to, you know, increase the diesel price, given the, you know, the knock-on effect, the trickle effect for the diesel prices.
So if we had to take a look at this from a holistic perspective, right? We've seen the increases in the price of fuel over the last few years. We've seen some adjustments in the personal tax structure and so on. How has the government done in terms of the balancing act?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I think that, you know, when you listen, and I mean I do it from when I listen to people, instead of just doing the calculation, they are feeling the impact. They are feeling that, you know, I mean, when property tax comes in, again, too, I mean, I'm not against property tax, I am for it, but I mean, I just don't agree with the way the government is structuring the property tax, and for another discussion. But the issue here is people are going to see it, the impact on their disposable income. And the more and more that disposable income reduces, is the less that they will be able to afford. And if we could find that the quality of life in Trinidad and Tobago being negatively impacted where that is concerned.
All right, so Richard, I want to bring you in on this discussion because when we were speaking earlier, we were speaking about the incentives, for example, to the agriculture sector.
Yes.
And saying that they were not enough. So I know there was an incentive announced a few budgets back in terms of, I think it was a $100,000 facility for farmers. I may have got, right.
Yes, yes.
Has that, we've had an issue in this country of affecting some of these promises. So I know that that's been in place, but have farmers been accessing those facilities, and how has it been improving?
The short answer to your question is yes, farmers have been accessing. The correct perspective to have on this issue is how many farmers in terms of percentage nationwide and so on. The answer lies within the attempted solution by the state. Farmers, in order to access these facilities, these subsidies, these grants and so on, loans as the case may be, need to have one empirical piece of evidence. A deed, proper title to land. That is something we've never properly addressed. In this country, we've had the closure of Carney Limited. The grand solution from the ministry, from the government at the time, was giving out agricultural plots. That process today is still ongoing. That has not been completed. And coming up to this interview, I heard that they're going to give the petrolation workers agricultural plots as well. Now, that is well and good, but you haven't completed giving out plots to the sugar workers, yet you're giving out to the petrolation workers, and you are still not giving the incentives. There is no initiative to give out the land lease other than a PR stunt, I would call it. There is no proper initiative, there's no proper process. And without, we have a society with 85% of farmers are squatting by the legal definition. They don't have title to land. They squat, they plant, they report the plant, and they sell. Somebody steals on their land, they can't properly report it to TTPS or Predial Lasting, as the case may be, because they don't have the proper title to property. They can't access the deed or the incentive or the loan because they don't have the deed. These are the problems we face in this country. That is what I referred to earlier. Now, when just after the break, you started asking about if you were to look at this overarching. The truth is, if you're looking at an overarching solution for the economy, agriculture is your place to go. The agricultural sector alone, improvement in the agriculture sector alone can bring an increase in employment in the short, medium, and long term. Skilled labor and skilled foreign labor, skilled local labor, and unskilled labor.
It also has to be made attractive because young people don't want to get involved in agriculture for some reason. I'm being told that we have just about 2 minutes left because we're going to 9:30 this evening. So I want to get some closing comments from you before we close off our program this evening. And I will start with you, Mrs. C. Prasad Bechan. Ladies always first.
Well, I just want to say that I just want to return into the point that I was making about making sure that we get value added, that we extract that value out of the value chain, that we are able to use every cubic foot of gas to maximize the value for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I say that in the context of generating quality jobs that are sustainable, technology transfer, service industries, because we're talking about being able to employ people, entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity. How are we going to empower young people if we don't do this? And this concept must be applied across the board. To agriculture, I think to make it more attractive, we have to look at the same value added from farm to the plate. If we don't give farmers the opportunity to invest downstream into, let's say, an agro-processing facility where their produce could become that feedstock for that plant, then it will not make sense for them economically. So I think we have to change, make a paradigm shift in how we want to approach development for Trinidad and Tobago. And the two examples I'm saying can be applied across the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. If we are going to get back jobs, we are going to get back new opportunities, and we are going to get the kind of development, economic, but balanced with the social development goals.
America?
Quickly, now that the stakes will increase during election time, I do hope that we could see a political imperative to create bigger policy and braver ones, and I'll definitely therefore call for a youth guarantee, as we have seen in some parts of Europe, to look at how it is we could guarantee jobs a certain number and have the strategic financing for it, which is very different from our approach, which is project-oriented, and to have a serious conversation about crime and violence. We could always do another forum.
Like a quota system. Richard, we have until 15 seconds. Your final comment.
Unfortunately, we have a food import bill that's $5 billion currently annually and rising. Agriculture can fix that. If you plant at home, strategically, statistically, plant at home, you can fill the groceries. You could cheaper food means lower cost of living, increased GDP, greater economic growth, and you can export, increases your foreign exchange problem immediately.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you, really do appreciate it. That brings us to the end of our program this evening. It was called Ease the Squeeze, our post-mid-year budget review analysis. We'll have much more analysis tomorrow and during the week ahead. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Kamal Georges. Have a great night.